Hello, fantasy friends. I'm the Raging Redhead Cam Stewart from HotRoster today, and we're only a couple days away from Week 14 kicking off, meaning for some of you, you're about to get your first taste of the fantasy playoffs in 2016. Buckle up. With just one wrong decision, your entire fantasy season could be over. How exciting. So to help you guys and gals avoid that, I'm here to give you the best and worst plays at running back for Week 14. It's been a tough couple weeks for Jeremy Hill of the Bengals. Ever since he became the outright starter in Cincinnati's backfield, the former LSU Tiger has only averaged 68 total yards per game. But this week should be a little bit easier for Hill. The Bengals hit the road to face the Brownies in Cleveland. And in 5 career games against the Browns, Hill has averaged 111 yards from scrimmage, 6.3 yards per carry, and has 4 scores to boot. Plus, Hill's averaging 21.5 touches per contest with Gio Bernard and A.J. Green out. That's some pretty good volume against a Browns defense that gives up 23 fantasy points to opposing running backs per game. I like Hill's chances this week. Start him if you have him, and I'll be pressing down on this guy big time on HotRoster. Another player who's getting plenty of volume right now is Cam Stewart of the Carolina Panthers. But despite averaging 15 touches per game over the last 5 weeks, the Stew Dog has only managed to top 50 yards once, but he's managed to find the end zone. This week, Stewart is in a great situation as the Panthers welcome the Chargers to Carolina. The Chargers on average give up 20 fantasy points to running backs this season. They've also allowed opposing backs to total 100 yards in 3 consecutive games. I think J. Stew is in for a nice weekend. I'd at the very least flex the guy and pick him up on HotRoster. One running back who's finding great success is Devonta Freeman on the Atlanta Falcons. Since Tevin Coleman made his return to the lineup 2 weeks ago, Freeman has still managed top 19 fantasy points in both contests. This type of production has a lot to do with his 4 scores over the last 2 weeks and his yards from scrimmage. He's managed to top 100 yards 5 times this season, including his 106 yards against the Chefs on Sunday. And Week 14 against the Rams should offer up another opportunity for the Falcons back. LA has allowed on average more than 100 yards to running backs all season long, and they've given up 4 scores to running backs over the last 2 weeks. Make sure you pick him up on HotRoster. Last week, I was loving LeGarrette Blount of the Pats. Blount rushed the ball 18 times for 81 yards and a TD Sunday against those same Rams, but that was Week 13. And this week is quite frankly the worst situation for any running back. The Patriots are home once again, but this time on Monday night to the Baltimore Ravens. And in case you weren't aware, the Ravens possess the best run defense in the NFL. They allow on average only 73 total yards to opposing RBs, and they've also shut them out of the end zone in 9 of their last 10 games. Just a ridiculous stat. So I don't think there's much more that needs to be said. I'd sit Blount if you can afford to do so, and definitely pick against this guy on HotRoster. The back who's going to be lining up against Blount on Monday night is Terrence West of the Ravens. And I got to say, for all the praise we've given the Ravens rush D, the Patriots aren't too far off that mark. New England has only given up 2 scores on the ground since Week 3, and they also only allow 75 rushing yards on average. This doesn't bode well for West, who appears to be in full-blown timeshare mode with Kenneth Dixon. Last week, West outtouched Dixon by only 3 touches, and he's only averaging 10 carries over his last 3 games. I think Terrence West is a player you should avoid playing this week if you can. And last but not least, Rashard Jennings of the Giants has to be another player I would avoid starting this week. Despite catching a season-high 6 catches against the Steelers in Week 13, Jennings only totaled 53 yards. He did manage a score. However, I can't see that happening in Week 14. The Giants are at home to the red-hot Dallas Cowboys, and Big D has destroyed teams' running attacks. No running back this season, not a single one, has managed 100 yards rushing against the Cowboys. They've also only allowed 5 rushing scores to running backs all season long. There is no way I'd even flex this guy. It's time to put Jennings on the bench and pick against him on HotRoster. And that's it for today, fantasy friends. Make sure you join us tomorrow when we tackle the wide receiver outlook for Week 14. And for those of you who don't know what HotRoster is, go to HotRoster.com, check it out, download the app, give it a try. It's like no other fantasy game you've ever played. And then for help winning the game, check out HotRoster today with me and Gary and Thorne every weekday at 4:30 Eastern, only on the Fantasy Sports Network. For HotRoster now, I'm Cam Stewart, and I'll see you on the virtual gridiron.